Welcome back to Architectural Adventures, brought to you by Historic Springfield Society. I'm your host, Kylie. Thanks for joining me as we tour Springfield's architectural curiosities. Today, we're going to be talking about decorating trends from the Edwardian era in Springfield. The reason I selected this era to talk about in terms of decorating is because the majority of our homes in Springfield were built during the Edwardian era. So to start off with, let's define what the Edwardian era encompasses. The Edwardian era is considered to be the reign of King Edward, which was 1901 to 1910. However, it's typically extended to about 1914 to encompass the start of World War I. And as I said, the majority of our homes in the neighborhood were built during this time period after the Great Fire of 1901. So I'm going to start with the big picture, and then I'm going to work my way inward. And when we finish, I'll actually show you some of the decor items that were popular during the Edwardian era. Now, I will start off by saying that there was not a lot of major changes in terms of decorations from the Victorian era, which was considered the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901, going into the early 20th century, which is the Edwardian era. However, there are some distinct differences which we will break down in a moment. So to start off with, a lot of our homes in Springfield are what you would consider a four-square plan, meaning that there are 4 rooms upstairs and then 4 rooms downstairs. Now, when you enter, the first room you typically enter into is a foyer or reception hall or foyer, whatever you want to call it. This is the room where you would greet your guests and receive them into your home. And really, this would be your guest's first impression of your home. So these rooms were typically quite awe-inspiring. I'm sure you've seen the homes in Springfield where the staircases are very grand as you enter, and then some of these reception halls even have fireplace mantles. This room was definitely meant to impress. And then typically right off of this room, you would have your front parlor. And again, this is another room where your guests will be spending a lot of time. Therefore, it would be highly decorative, and you would have your finest pieces on display in this room. And then typically off of that room, you would have your dining room, and then off of your dining room, you would have your kitchen. And of course, as we've discussed previously when we've talked about kitchens from this era, the kitchen was the room that your guests would not have been entering, so they would not have seen your kitchen. So to talk about some of the decor items that you would see in the Edwardian era home, if it was Queen Anne or Craftsman style, your woodwork typically would be unpainted stained woodwork. Now, if your home was of the Colonial Revival style, then the woodwork was probably going to be painted white. In terms of wall treatments, you would have your wall section off. So you would have what is called a dadu, or chair rail as we call it today, which would protect your wall from any furniture sliding into it. And then at the top, you would have a picture rail molding that would run around the perimeter of the room. And because, of course, most of our walls were plaster at the time, to avoid damage in the plaster walls, you would hang all of your pictures using the picture rail molding. So you would nail your nails into that, and then you would have a fancy cord that you would hang down and connect to your picture. So you wouldn't be nailing your pictures directly into your plaster walls. And that's an important decorative element in Edwardian era homes. In terms of wall colors, for Craftsman era homes, you would have a lot of really deep, rich earth tones. So you would have a lot of hunter green and golds and really warm tones. And in the Queen Anne style homes, you'd have very rich, deep colors. So you would have a lot of, again, maroons, hunter greens, darker colors, golds were still popular in that style as well. And then when you talk about Colonial Revival style, it really goes into much more soft, dainty colors. So we have a lot more pastels. We have lots of off-whites, pale blues, pale pinks, pale yellows. So those were the colors that predominated that style. The interesting thing that you'll find with Edwardian era homes, and I'm particularly going to use the parlor a lot as an example when talking about decorating, because it was one of the real major important rooms in the home at that time. Was today we generally tend to group our furniture in conversation areas. So you'll have your couch, and then you'll have the chairs facing towards the couch, or you'll have the couch facing a television set. But during this era, of course, there was no television set. And what you'll find is a lot of times furniture is very helter-skelter around the room. There's a wide assortment of chairs that are randomly scattered around the Edwardian parlor. And we don't have that grouped conversation area. Everyone just pretty much is in chairs all throughout the room. And there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, sometimes they'll be grouped around a fireplace perhaps, but for the most part, the furniture is going to be around the perimeter of the room, which is interesting. And then in the center of the room is a wide open space, and we have a very important feature of the Edwardian era home, which is the parlor table. And this is a very Edwardian feature. You don't see this a lot outside of this era, but you would have a beautiful large decorative table of wood, and the popular woods of the time were typically oak, especially quarter sawn oak. If you want to be really fancy, it was more expensive because it was cut into quarters to get that very fancy wood grain. It was quite beautiful. But you would have this table, a quite large table in the center of the room. Sometimes you would have chairs around this table. And this table would really be a gathering hub for the home. And when it wasn't in use, you could have a very large, beautiful floral arrangement in the center of it. And of course, no Edwardian home would be complete without a beautiful large doily in the middle of the table. Most surfaces would not be bare or naked. That would be indecent. So we need to have a doily on that table. Now, when the table was in use, this table would have been a work table of sorts for the Edwardian women of the household. This was an era where a lot of things in the home were handmade, including a lot of the decorations. So at this time, handiwork was very popular, such as embroidery, crochet. So, we're going to make those doilies that we're going to put on all of these tables. We're going to embroider these beautiful linens and pillows that we have. Ladies of the household would make table runners. And then I'll show you some examples near the end of our video. Another really popular pastime was to paint porcelain. So that's another key hallmark of Edwardian era decorations. Ladies of the household would have a creative outlet where they would paint lots of beautiful floral motifs or fruit or even scenes onto porcelain. So that table was really a work table and a gathering space, and then it could also be used to play cards. The gentleman of the household may sit at this table and read the newspaper. So this parlor table was really an important center of the home at that time. And again, this is a quirky Edwardian feature which did not really last outside of this era. Eventually, the parlor would become the living room as we know it today, and this table would disappear. Other furniture pieces that you would see during that time period, you would see lots of parlor tables that were side tables and plant stands, and a table that you may have even encountered in a Springfield home present day, because they were so prevalent, is a parlor table that has 4 spindly legs that are, I would say, sort of at an angle, creating kind of like a tapered effect. And those parlor tables were quite popular. I've even seen some fancy ones that have a top that is cut in the shape of a clover leaf. So they were very common at the time. And another piece of furniture that was incredibly common during this era is like this reproduction chair, which I'm sitting in right now. So this is called a pressed back chair. And as you can see, these chairs are quite common. In fact, you can still buy reproduction sets to this day. Now, I've had this set for a number of years now, but I purchased it new. And it goes very well in my 1910 home because this is the type of furniture that more than likely would have been here when it was built. These chairs are incredibly common. Typically they have this row of spindles on the back, and then all of the reproduction ones that you'll see have the grape and leaf motif. But if you look at the antique ones, and you can still find originals in antique malls all the time, they have a wide variety of scenes stamped into them, different spindle patterns, and sometimes you'll find them with cane seats on the seats. So that was a type of furniture that was very common during the Edwardian era, and you can still find today. Other furniture that you may see during this era is stick and ball furnishings, which is a holdover from the late Victorian era, and I have an example which I'll show you in a moment. You may also see some Eastlake furniture, which was made popular by English writer Charles Locke Eastlake, who published Hints on Household Taste. The Eastlake style, again, was most popular during the late 19th century, but it remained popular well into the early 20th century. And then we had the craftsman movement taking hold. So our craftsman furniture, also sometimes called stickly or mission style furnishings, was much heftier and had much more clean lines. So if you didn't care for the late Victorian era fussy furniture such as the Eastlake furniture or your Rococo Revival furnitures, then you could have this, strong mission style furniture, which was much more about craftsmanship and a return to hand-built medieval forms. So those were some of the types of furniture that you would see during this time period. Moving on to decor items. So as I promised, I would show some of the items that you would see in terms of decor during this era. So right here, this is a piece of Limoges, and it was made in Limoges, France. It's a porcelain, and this is one of those pieces that was hand painted during the Edwardian era. This piece probably dates to about 1910, and floral motifs were very popular during that era, and then gilding was very popular as well. And a lot of these designs are often Art Nouveau inspired. That was very popular during this time period. And no two pieces are alike because all of these pieces were painted by typically housewives of the era. It was their form of expression. And so that's what's really neat. A lot of these items were one-of-a-kind pieces. So they were originally blank pieces of porcelain that were hand-painted. And then I also have this piece, which these colors here are very indicative of the Edwardian era. This was a very popular wall color at the time. So this creamy yellow, and then browns were very popular, greens were very popular. This is very indicative of the early 20th century in terms of color palettes, as well as this piece right here. If you want to talk about colors during the Edwardian era, it's a little bit like Christmas, but these were the colors that were popular at the time. Dark hunter green, maroon, very popular colors of the time period. And then this motif was also a very popular motif that you would see. Again, fruits were very popular. You'd see lots of grapes, anything like that. And then, as I mentioned before, doilies. So this is probably the oldest doily that I have in my collection. And you can see that the detail work is quite fine. I like that it kind of reminds me of a spider web. But this probably also dates to the Edwardian era, and it's quite delicate compared to the doilies that you would see in later years. So those are just some of the things that you see decor-wise in the Edwardian era. It's a very vast and expansive topic. I really just brushed the surface of it. But if you would like more of these videos in the future, then please let me know and we will talk about it. Thanks so much for dropping by, and we'll see you next time on Architectural Adventures.